石段を支える太い柱豪朗快な笑い声が響くどんな日でも恐れな
Welcome back, makers. This is Leon. Today we are building Varka Massive Claymore. The Grandmaster is finally here. So let's make some foam dust. The template is in the description, so feel free to check it out. First, print out the template, cut along the dash line, and connect them all with tape. This tape is completely optional, but I like to stick the template to how the cardstock. It makes it much more durable and lasts longer than my will to live. Notice there are a few template types here. One is your full visual reference, the other has gap down the middle. That is where our core bone structure goes. Grab the template with the gap in the middle and max 2 copy on 5mm and 10mm foam. I made a slight mistake on this step. I applied contact adhesive to the 5mm foam too early. You should definitely wait to do this, because we still need to enhance the tip. Next, we need a standard wooden toothpick. Place it over the sharp tip of the template, then just trace a mark right along the edge. This will help us reinforce the point. Cut that mark tip right off the template, then trace it directly onto the 5mm foam, and cut a V-groove with a knife. Apply some super glue inside the V-groove, then press the toothpick right into it. This keeps the tip from bending or snapping. Do the same thing for the rest of the tips. Mark, cut a V-groove, and glue a toothpick. This keeps every point on the sword rigid. Grab the paper template again. Now we cut up that middle core marking. We finally need that gap for the structure. For the main tip, use a thick wooden skewer. Leave some extra length sticking out. It needs to slot into the main bone structure. This makes the sword tip nearly indestructible, unlike my motivations. With the skewer and toothpick glue in, it is time to apply contact adhesive to both sides. Just don't forget to cut V-groove on the opposite foam. That way the toothpicks slot together perfectly flush. Lay a sheet of paper between the glue foam layers. Line up the edges perfectly before pressing down. Slowly pull the paper away to bond the pieces. It stops the glue from grabbing before you are ready. Once the foam layers are fully bonded together, lay your paper template back on top and trace the hollow middle section out. Grab a sharp knife and cut the long section. Cut all the way through the foam layers here, but leave both of the ends completely intact. I leave both ends intact for a specific reason. That middle section acts as temporary support. It holds the entire shape of the sword together and keeps everything perfectly aligned. I wish it can keep my life aligned. Slice through just one side of both ends first. This lets you easily pop that middle foam out right after you stick it to the 10mm base. Apply contact adhesive to the side we just cut, but strictly avoid gluing the middle section. Now coat your solid 10mm foam with contact adhesive. Let both sides sit until they are dry and tacky, then carefully stick the two layers together. With the foam layer fully bonded together, go ahead and remove that middle piece of foam, just like how she removed me from her life. Now we have perfect clean channel, ready for us to insert the bone structure. Check the template for the exact length you need. We're using an aluminum tube for this build. Trim it to size. This will be the main bone structure for the prop. It gives the whole sword some much needed spine. I made a slight miscalculation at the tip. The toothpick was blocking the aluminum tube, so I just trimmed the toothpick down to fit. But it will not be a problem for you because I changed the template and the build a bit afterwards. Let's move over to the main tip of the sword. The skewer was fitting a bit too loosey inside, so I fixed it by adding tiny foam strip to it that act as cushion so it doesn't rattle. Next, roughen the aluminum with sandpaper. This gives the glue something to bite into. Then mix up the batch of strong steel epoxy and secure the bone structure inside the gate. For those new to working with 2-part epoxy, squeeze out part A and B, mix them evenly. You gotta work quickly because it's set in just few minutes. Spread it out on the aluminum and slot it into the gate. Once secured, it gives the prop a solid spine, so this giant claymore would never wobble. If only I can enhance my guts like that, she wouldn't be with someone else. Once the core is completely set and ready, it is time to cover up the other side. Apply contact adhesive just like before and use the paper sheet trick to align it. Coming up next, we mark all the sanding guides for both the main blade and the handle section. Then we can finally start beveling the edge. Before sanding, grab your craft knife first. Carve away the bulk of the excess material, but be careful not to cut away too much. Only trim down the sharp blocky edges. These save you tons of time sanding later. For the handle section, there is a specific rule. we are only beveling off the top 10mm layer. Because we want the grid to stay thick and round, we definitely do not want a sharp handle. For this specific edge right here, it needs to be rounded off. We do not want a sharp bevel on this part, so I drew a quick mark on the side as a guide. Now let's gear up and head to the sanding station. I start with my Dremel and end at the grid sanding drum. This quickly removed most of the materials, then I switch to a 240 grit drum to smooth it out. Finally, I hand sand with a 240 grit sanding block. This gives the foam perfectly smooth surface. After all that sanding, here is the result. Let's take a closer look at the final shape. I will show you exactly how the details look. After a day, I noticed a mistake on the handle tip. The handle was just not looking quite right to me. So let me show you exactly how I corrected this part. And yes, the final template is already fixed. I got you, fam. I yielded this part and built a brand new one. Just like how we made the sword, sandwich the two pieces of 5mm foam with the 10mm foam on both sides, but also leave core gap at the middle so it can be attached onto the handle afterwards. I also decided not to attach this onto the handle yet and leave it completely separated. Doing it in two pieces make life easier. Trust me, it helped with the rest of the build. Next up, we add these details right here. Cut this shape out of your 5mm foam, glue one onto each side of the tip. After that, we add this piece right here. We're using 3mm foam for this section. It really helps with the smaller details pop. We're going to sand this part down later, so make sure you are only using contact adhesive. It provides way better surface coverage. Just like before, we trim the edges down, slide off the excess foam with a knife. It saves so much time when we start sanding. Next, make copies of all the remaining parts, then we head over to the sanding station and sand all of these foam pieces at once. After hours of sanding, here is the result. All the pieces are finally smoothed out. Let's see how this detail looks up close. Next, I attach this jewel part right here. For this specific piece, I use super glue. It bonds instantly and holds really well. I actually made another mistake right here, so just ignore this part of the video. Instead, let's mark our sanding guidelines. Use a knife to remove some of the material, then sand it down until it is perfectly round. I also kept the offset layer right here. This makes it much more accurate to the design. Next, I attach the jewel back into place. Just secure it right down exactly like this. After that, use this exact template, create another jewel and glue it down. Remember to put one on each side. When attaching the jewel, make sure the shorter side faces the end of the tip, the longer side faces up towards the grip. Move to this template and use 2mm foam. The arrow indicates the connection seams. Cut a bevel on the edge with the arrow. Make 2 complete sets of this part. Then attach them onto the handle tip. Make sure everything lines up nicely. This is how it looks on the handle. I'm leaving it unglued for now, so it is easier to paint later. Done with the handle, back to the blade. Grab these specific template pieces next. Cut out 2 exact copies on 5mm foam and make 4 copies on the smaller one. After that, remove this part from the template, then make 2 copies on this shape. We are using thicker 1cm foam for these pieces. Grab a pen and mark the attachment line, then mark all your sanding guideline. Because you guessed it, we have to sand it. After that, we have a specific sanding sequence. To avoid confusing myself, I numbered them. I marked the parts from 1 to 3. This shows exactly what to sand first. I also recommend making a small cut right here. It makes the inner corner easier to sand. Now we spend some more time sanding the edges. Use both large and small sanding drums. This creates a really nice bevel edge. After hours of sanding, here is what we have. Let me show you all the details right here.
我らがもっ
Glue these finished pieces onto the blade. Now we can move on sanding the part number 3. This is the final step for this section. After attaching, use a knife to carve the foam, cut away all the excess material first, then go through the sanding process again. And here is the result. Now let's proceed to the other details. We have a few more parts to add to this. I adjusted the template slightly in the video. The final provided template is fully updated. Cut exact copies using the stated thickness, then follow along as I show you the assembly. But first, mark all the sanding guideline because we are still not done sanding yet. After marking the pieces, I almost forgot, there are a few more parts we need to make. Make 2 copies of each of these pieces so we can sand all the parts at once. Once again, after hours of endless sanding, here's the final result of all that work. Let's take a look at how it turns out. Notice that this part looked a little bit different. I lost track of the design while sanding, so I checked the original artwork again, then quickly resend it to match. I gotta be honest, I forgot to record this attachment part, but luckily the attachment is pretty simple. Refer to the template for the positions, find a midpoint on the side of the sword, then just go ahead and glue it right on. Coming up next, we attach the details. Let's glue them right onto the handle. We will first start with this piece here, then the next one go right next to it. After that, add the next part on top. Stacking the foam adds some great depth. For these 2 parts here, I decided to wait. I'm not sticking them onto the sword yet. They might block my painting process later, so I'm keeping them separate for now. We are getting really close to the end. Grab the template for the blade layers. Cut these pieces out of 3mm thick foam. Make a bevel cut right where I mark. You need this for every side of the sword, so you absolutely must flip the template here. Next up, reinforce the blade is crucial. People will rest the sword on the floor, so we will use toothpick trick again. Cut a V-groove and put toothpick inside. This stops the foam tip from crushing. But little did I know this method doesn't really work, and definitely doesn't stop me from crushing out. After attaching the blade layer onto the sword, due to the little toothpick is not connecting to the skewer, so which means the bone structure isn't connecting, which makes the bone structure pretty weak, and it actually deformed a little after putting on the floor. So just adding the tip support was not enough. I cut the foam to add a second toothpick. I advise leaving one side unglued in the previous step to make it easier. I removed the previous toothpick and replace it with another longer toothpick. Place it right along the edge of the blade. This stopped the tip from breaking on the floor. I did not record this part, but I actually made a V-groove cut along here, so the toothpick can sit flush inside. Now that the tip is enhanced, let's move on. Let's finish up the remaining pieces now. Grab some super glue to fix it all in place. Super glue is perfect for a fast, strong bond. Now that all the foam parts are done, we need to trace the patterns onto the sword. This will really help with the painting process. Trace the pattern with a silver gel pen. After that, use a knife to score the line. Make sure to keep the cuts very shallow. Do not cut all the way through the foam. I made another specific template for the handle. Use this to get the pattern perfectly aligned. Just trace it right onto the foam surface. Once every part is done scoring, grab a heat gun, use it to heat the entire foam surface. This seals the foam and opens up all the cuts. After that, drill a hole through the aluminum here. Insert a sturdy hook to hang the sword. This makes the painting process so easy. I also tapped the aluminum to cover it from paint. Now we are finally at the painting step. I use a spray gun for this whole part. Spray water-based paint onto the sword. This gives the base layer for the real paint. As we know, EVA foam has tiny pores. It acts like a sponge and absorbs liquids. This step primes the entire surface. It helps with the real paint lays on evenly. Now we just hang the sword up to dry. Because this is a water-based paint, I also point a fan at it to speed up the process. Next up is the refining process. Grab a wood filler for holes and seams. This fills any unwanted gaps on the foam. The best part is it sands down so easily. I also sand down any remaining fuzzy edges that get left behind from the rough sanding. This ensures a perfectly smooth foam surface. I prime a few more layers after that, then I started the actual painting process. I use a flat black spray can for this part. Always paint inner and smaller parts first. This makes it much easier to mask later on. Let this black paint dry for a full day. Once it's dry, grab some masking tape. Start masking off those inner black details. After that, I painted the next two colors. I added the brown and the silver details. I didn't want to use a boring flat grey. I just really love how the metallic shine. We repeat the masking step one more time. Tap out all the painted color carefully. As you can see, I use specific technique. I tap a bigger piece over the whole area, then I carefully cut the excess with a knife. This gives you perfectly sharp corner line. Next up is another massive time saver. Remember those gaps we heated and opened? Just lay a larger masking tape right over. Now cut through using the gap as a guide. This technique makes masking so fast and saves tons of time. Now just repeat this exact same process. Paint, mask, and do it over and over. Keep at it until every color is painted. It takes time, but the results are worth it. Now we have painted every last color. It is finally time for the big unboxing. Carefully remove all the masking tape. Pray to every otaku god for good luck. Just hope that everything is perfectly fine. Now let's attach these stray pieces. I removed the foam hook I attached earlier and mark the exact position for these pieces. Use a knife to scrape away the paint here. This lets the glue attach right onto the foam. Gluing on pen, we just tear the paint off. For the pieces, I also trim them off, just a little bit to match the shape. The sword is actually a little bit curvy. This helps the pieces sit perfectly. Lastly, we attach the handle tip we made. I had to trim the foam off a little bit because it was hitting another part here. Grab some epoxy for the final piece, attach it securely onto the sword. And I also added a little bit of super glue here to give it extra secure. Now for the final step of the build, we add some more shades to the sword. I dry brush dark gold and black into the corner. This will give the color some contrast. It makes everything pops a little more. And with that, we are done.
背中騎士団を支える太い柱